Welcome to My Wife is DMC. I'm DMV and you're watching Husbando Homebrew, a show where we take pop culture to pen and paper. So what have we got here today? To celebrate the return of Bleach, we'll be taking a look at the absolute giga-chad of the series, Yasutora Chad Sado, with a new barbarian primal path. Let's go! Part 1. Punching Ghosts. Bleach as a setting is special in that its superhumans can interact with what looks to be the ethereal plane. So let's first take a look at a race that can interact with the ethereal plane with a spirit sensitive. If you're not using the custom lineage options for your ASI, you gain a +2 to wisdom or charisma and a +1 to 2 ability scores of your choice. I know it's not optimal for the upcoming barbarian subclass we'll be looking over later, but I did so to respect the setting. Skipping over to the basics of age, size, speed, and languages, you get the emotional sensitivity trait. This gives you proficiency in insight and persuasion, just as a small leg up. I wager people who would eventually perceive the supernatural would have a knack to read people. The major trait of this race is spirit sense. This starts off small, only allowing you to sense, not see, the presence of creatures in the ethereal plane within 60 feet of you. This is a nod to Chad in the early days of Bleach, where he needed someone to tell him where to punch. At 3rd level, however, you have 1 foot in the ethereal door. You partially exist in both the plane of the living and unliving, and allows you to finally affect stuff in both sides of the living fence.
DMV from the future here.
The spirit-sensitive race does get a cool trait called Spiritual Pressure. It's a boost to your damage or defenses that emulates the way spiritual pressure is represented in the anime, either through a fear effect, reduced damage, or increased damage. Anyway, back to the video. That was just a setup to the subclass. When you finally see and affect the supernatural at 3rd level, you also manifest your spiritual power. As a barbarian, you can take the Path of the Hollowed primal path. This subclass represents the absolute Chad of the series, Yasutora Sado, or Chad for short. Unlike the other characters of Bleach, Chad's powers are more hollow-like in appearance, as it transforms his body, specifically his arms, to combat his supernatural enemies. At 3rd level, when you take this path, you get the Arm of the Giant. This transforms one of your arms into a magic weapon that gives you a scaling weapon that grows with you as you gain levels in this class. It also gives you a ranged option as a barbarian, so enemies out of reach can still feel your fist. This is only your first step into fighting the otherworldly hollows. Let's see how your power grows in...
Part 2. Your soul in your fist.
When Chad went down to the series equivalent to the Shadowfell, his arm grew stronger and took an even more powerful form. No need to go to Soul Hell in your case, however, because at 6th and 10th levels your arm goes wild. At 6th level, you get the Strike of the Giant. I know I keep saying giant, but this is really more of a nod to the source material, and no, I refuse to butcher the Spanish language by trying to emulate what Chad would say.
Brazo derecho del gigante.
This feature gives you new options that you can use with your arm. It's a limited use feature, and expending the last use would end your rage early. Essentially, it's a release of your spiritual pressure in different directions. The front release allows you to fire a beam of 2d8 force damage in a 30-foot line. This damage scales according to your rage damage bonus, which goes up to 4d8 when you reach max level. I wager this isn't something you would use very often as a barbarian, seeing as your punches would likely hit harder. But this is one that can damage many targets at once if you find yourself outnumbered. The re-release gives you movement options without sacrificing offense. When you make an attack from far away, you can use a bonus action to propel your fist right into your target's face, and deal extra damage for every 5 feet of distance you covered. Omni-release is essentially my way of compensating for the subclass's lack of a magic weapon. I know it's a toss-up per table whether it'll have magic items or not, but I don't want players to feel like they're missing out when their party members get all kinds of +1 and +2 weapons. Note that Strike of the Giant is limited use only until you reach 20th level as a barbarian. Once you hit your PC's retirement age, you can essentially use these features an unlimited number of times. To continue the theme of your PC's growth and power, you get the True Arm of the Giant at 10th level. This gives you a bit of a defensive and control option. As your arm takes on a shield-like form, you can take advantage of its large frame by using it defensively. Hollow Shield allows you to have a parry-like ability and a few elements from Shieldmaster to aid in your dexterity saving throws. Power of the Giant, on the other hand, allows you to literally tackle a giant, provided you use the Omni-Release property of your Strike of the Giant feature. We have one more subclass feature to look at. Let's cap off the subclass in...
Part 3. Those who fight monsters.
At last, you've reached the subclass capstone. This is the pinnacle of your power, as the Hollow-esque transformation affects both your arms. At 14th level, you get Arm of the Devil. This gives you a second magical arm that lets you make one additional attack with it. This arm also shares any bonuses granted by the Omni-Release property of your Strike of the Giant feature. The final property of this subclass is a once per day attack called Sacrifice of the Devil. When you hit with this arm, you can deal additional d8s of force damage equal to your rage damage bonus, and you gain temp HP equal to half of the damage dealt. Remember to check out the Ko-Fi link down below and subscribe to My Wife is DMC for more homebrew content. If you enjoyed our first foray into Bleach, do let me know by punching that like button. And no, I refuse to make an Ichigo race or subclass if only because he's kind of got all the powers. It's kind of absurd. In any case, let me know in the comments who you want me to take on next, and make sure you share this video with your grandpa. As always, thank you for being here, and I appreciate you for making it to the end of the video. This has been My Wife is DMC. I'm DMV, and I'll see you in the next Husbando Homebrew.